the next plenary session, which is actually how did Kerala face the challenge of Nipah virus? That is the title of the plenary session. As you know, actually when we planned this IHCPA conference in Kerala, we thought, we need to really learn lesson from Kerala. There are two things which actually Honorable Minister was also speaking. One is actually Kerala, how did Kerala handle the Nipah virus? That was one part of the story. The other part actually, how did Kerala even handle after the large flood? How did it contain any kinds of infectious diseases after the flood, which everyone in the world was expecting? So it was really two major success, which is not happened, is also something called, which we don't really discuss, but which is a large success, which we really don't know, which since it didn't happen, no one really bothered. If it has happened, and then if something occurred, then people would have really discussed about it. So I'm thinking we have now today with us the Health Secretary of Kerala, Rajeev Sadanandan. Rajeev Sadanandan is, I think many of you may be familiar, he is not only that he is a Health Secretary of the state, but he was also a student. Actually, when I was a student in CDS, he was also, I have to say my junior, because he was doing MPhil, I was doing PhD. So in that way, he is also very actively involved in many of the research of the health, and he has been working in the areas of health for a long time. And we have with us Dr. V.R. Rajendran and also Dr. Seriza Aral, and I welcome you all and hand over the mic to Rajeev Sadanandan to conduct the proceeding.
Morning, good afternoon everybody. Morning, because I was supposed to meet you in the morning but couldn't make it. Day before yesterday, Minister and I were making a presentation in the Dubai Health Forum, presenting how how Kerala avoided the post-flood epidemics. And as we came down from the podium, some of the Keralites met us and asked, why did you present on the Nipah? No, so you are fortunate that at this point we are talking about not of the two major public health achievements that we had. We're going to be speaking about Nipah. Now, the difference between Nipah and flood is that in flood we knew what to expect. And in fact, I was just looking at the first circular that I issued, in which all the aspects that we could possibly confront were discussed. So we knew what we're dealing with it. And it was something that we were leveraging our capacity to deal with a known epidemic, with a known challenge. But Nipah was a different experience altogether. I will not go into the details of the response, because we have with us Arun joining on the. I hope Arun is listening to us anyway. We have three of the people who dealt with three major components of this response. One was the surveillance part, and that Arun is going to be talking about. Dr. Sarita, who was a former district medical officer of Kozhikode, we posted her in Kozhikode. Said like, when DHS health service can wait. Right now, Nipah has to be handled. So she was there right from 2 days after the start of the epidemic till we declared the epidemic closed. She was the chief coordinator of the control room that we had set up, where most of the activities are happening. Those cases that got infected, and that was and what happens in Nipah, the case management is that at that point we didn't know how to respond at all. So conservative case management and infection control was all that we could do. So having a tertiary center that could deal with the challenge post the epidemic was of crucial importance. We were lucky to have one of the best health institutions in the state right in the heart of Kozhikode, that is a Kozhikode Medical College. Dr. Rajendran is a principal, was a principal at that time also, and both of them can give you a blow-by-blow account of how the three of them actually, Arun, Dr. Sarda and Rajendran, can give you a intimate, hands-on account of what really happened. And who goes first? What would you prefer? You would rather make a presentation? What's the time limit that we have? What is the...
We can go up to 4:15.
Oh, okay. Then I think you can make 2 presentations. No? Right.
It's not actually a presentation, it's a story. For me, it's a story blended with the mixed emotions of the people of Kerala. And as you all know, Kerala has experienced the outbreaks of many communicable diseases in the past, but nothing has been as terrifying as the Nipah outbreak, which spread in Kozhikode in May 2017. The district Kozhikode virtually came into a grinding halt. People refused to venture out from their homes. Schools and colleges were closed. And anybody who traveled to Calicut would agree with me that it's a paradise for food-loving tourists, but the tourist inflow to the city has completely stopped during the outbreak. And all the small and medium-scale businesses were forced to shut down. And to summarize, Kozhikode was almost like a ghost city. May 17, 2018, it was the beginning of the battle. A battle for us, losing was not even an option. It was against Nipah, a virus about which the state of Kerala had not even heard in the past. As all the public health experts will definitely know that any public health response will go through the stages of the alert, verification, then confirmation, response like that. Here the family clustering of a similar illness of encephalitis sounded the alarm bell, and a group of vigilant physicians. Please note that it's from a private hospital, they quickly picked it up. And the index case was a young man from a village in Kozhikode district who fell ill on May 1st, and he died within 4 or 5 days after the illness, and later on 3 of his family members also became sick. And this unusual event also alerted our Honorable Minister for Excise and Labour, who happens to be the elected representative from that constituency, and he directed the DMO and DHS to verify the incident. And our district health team, led by the district medical officer Kozhikode, Dr. Jayashree, they visited the area on the same day. And I should say that it was like a one world, one health approach, because she took the veterinary, forest and entomology teams along with her public health teams, and they actually tried to close all the loopholes by considering the possibilities of vector-borne, waterborne or zoonotic diseases, and public health measures like chlorination and fogging was done on the same day itself. And on 18th May, I got a phone call from Dr. Arun Kumar, the proactive head of microbiology, Manipal Center for Viral Research, where the samples were sent from the private hospital. It was like this, madam, it's a virus. And he also added that he is not in a position to disclose the name of the virus because it has got international implications. But the public health system of Kerala actually started responding even well before the etiological diagnosis was confirmed, and all levels of the system's hierarchy actually sprang into action right from the first alert. Responsibilities were assigned, oversight committees were formed, and monitoring and control measures started, and we established the contact tracing measures also. And on the next day, that is 19th May, our Honorable Minister, you just had a discussion with her. She actually visited the area, she reviewed the situation, and she addressed the anxious people of Kerala through a special media meet. That was the first media meet on Nipah we had officially. Then on 20th May 2018 at 7:43 p.m. we got the confirmatory message from Dr. Moides sir, that is the Director of National Institute of Virology, that what we were handling is a deadly virus, Nipah. Then immediately an emergency operations center was set up in the government guest house Kozhikode. We called it Nipah cell. And as sir rightly pointed out, DHS was posted by the government as the incident commander of the operations, and it was like a multidisciplinary approach. The DHS office was set up with necessary staff, equipments and communication facilities, and this center managed various activities like infrastructure and logistic management, training of healthcare workers, then case definition management protocols, transportation and other guidelines. Contact tracing was done through this center only, and it's established a special exclusive call center for the public, and all other administrative and executive works were carried out by this Nipah cell, and this was the structure of the cell, schematic representation. And regarding infrastructure, the state of Kerala never had a foolproof isolation facility till then. And then what we witnessed was actually a magic. The crowded tertiary care center, the Calicut Government Medical College, was transformed into an excellent facility with international standard. And I'm sure that Dr. Rajendran will be briefing about that part of the story after this. And necessary logistics, that is the N95 mask, personal protection equipments and other essential things were made available through the public system, through the KMSCL we procured, that is the procuring agency for the government, and some we got as donations from some private agencies internationally. At the same time, we required an enhanced laboratory supported surveillance for the management of for the surveillance of the severe acute respiratory infection, then ARDS and acute encephalitis. And this MCVR, that is the Manipal Center for Viral Research, which is part of a nationwide network for viral studies. They agreed to support us in this activity, and then the sample collection, packing and all transportation guidelines were developed, and they also ensured us that report will be available within 24 hours. And in the initial days of the outbreak, actually the fatality was 100%. The physicians were actually mute spectators of a highly predictable fatal outcome, and the antiviral agent ribavirin and some supportive measures were used with limited efficacy. But a high-level discussion with our respected Additional Chief Secretary Rajiv Sadanandan sir with some agencies abroad that possessed at least some molecules for compassionate use made it possible to bring those molecules to Calicut Medical College. Within no time, the clearance of the Drug Controller of India and other licensing agencies are obtained within 24 hours, and regular video conferencing was done between the stakeholders to develop the protocols and the other. But we never had any opportunity, fortunately, to use this monoclonal antibody because we didn't have any positive cases once we started the mission. And the waste disposal management's waste disposal guidelines were also formulated, and trainings were a continuous session, and Dr. Rajendran will be briefing about the trainings because all the healthcare professionals, organizations, everybody were given training on the various protocols on management. Then we actually we modified the Ebola protocols, and it was finalized according to the state's socio-cultural, demographic and the epidemiological realities, and these protocols are finalized and circulated among the healthcare providers. And transportation, for the transportation we a dedicated voluntary group of ambulance system angels from Kozhikode, they ensured the support, and they were given training how to use the PPE, how to remove the PPE and how to clean the ambulance. And once any person in the contact list becomes positive with any symptoms, the ambulance system will be triggered and he'll be transported to the tertiary care center through the ambulance system. And any Nipah related death was actually a heartbreaking news in our Nipah camp because it was very difficult for the relatives. They were not allowed to see their dear ones for one last time and bid goodbye before their last journey. But our health staff actually supported the family to come back to their normal lives when the family member is lost. And then one health officer from Kozhikode Corporation, Dr. Gopakumar, he willingly performed the last rites for most of the deceased when the relatives were not there or not allowed to do that. And we had to adopt to the safe burial, deep burial practices also because cremation was not accepted by certain communities in Calicut. And we prepared a huge list of the contacts, persons who were in contact with a positive case of Nipah, and a huge database was formed. Actually, we expected more than 200 cases because one case, 15 cases. So from the 15 cases, we expected 225 cases. And this asymptomatic contacts were advised home quarantine for the incubation period of 21 days, and their health status, a dedicated phone line was established to inquire about their health status to daily morning and evening. And we established another call center for the public to answer their queries also. And any symptomatic contact, as I already told you, will be transferred to the isolation facility. Sorry. There is an issue with the slide. The number of contacts, as you can see from the graph, it's a contact list was a dynamic one, because a person will be included in the list when he gives a positive history and will be excluded when the incubation period was over. And as you can see from this pie chart, the department members, the health services, medical college team members knew very well that most of the contacts were their dear ones or they themselves. Yet they decided to keep aside their emotions and worked hard for this single cause. And there was a daily activity review in the Nipah cell. Almost all days it was chaired by either of the honorable ministers or ACS, SMD and other top officials. And we never had any hesitancy to change any parameters or any program that we have already planned. According to the review, each and every minor aspect of the Nipah cell or emergency operations center were reviewed in the this conference. And after the review meeting, the top officials met the media and they briefed the day's activity and what is to be done on the next day and all those things. And actually, being part of this large department, there were times when we had to be harsh to the media as well as friendly, but this time we hardly noticed any unethical reporting, any negative reporting, any prejudice versions. Instead, they show a high degree of professional, ethical reporting. And some of the media persons are also in the contact list because they were very close to the disaster in the initial stages of the outbreak without knowing that this is going to be something dangerous for them. And social media management, as you all know, these days it was very difficult, but and we started a misinformation countering campaign also. 25 cases were actually registered by the police department, home department, and 10 persons were arrested. And we also used the social media to disseminate our own messages and the IEC that we prepared. Then once we started gaining control over the situation, we identified the issue of requirement of mental health support to the persons in the contact list as well as the healthcare professionals and the patients' relatives and all. And this was entrusted to the district mental health team, which is part of the government health services department. They did the job and they also established another call center for the public to answer to their mental health queries. And the government actually set some public support systems like enhanced public distribution systems, then financial support, job offers and appreciation to the staff and all those. And research activities were going in parallel with the support of the national and also the international national agencies and the state. By then we lost our dear colleague Lini to the deadly virus, and the staff members were facing isolation from the general public. But they were brave. They are determined to work day and night, no matter whatever be the consequences. And actually the dedication and determination shown by the government school of nursing students when one of them was fighting with the virus, with the disease, it proved that the future of the globally accepted nursing system of Kerala is safe in their hands. And we had 18 positive cases and we could survive 2 persons with all these measures. So, may take this opportunity to thank each and every person who joined us without being asked to join. But it is not fair on my side to wrap up the session, wrap up the talk without mentioning something about the people of Kozhikode, my own native place. Because there was this organism which has frozen their lives. And they were witnessing their dear ones falling sick, succumbing to the virus, and they knew that the rest of the world was watching them. And the restrictions imposed by the administration on them was really hard to stick on. Still, they had to give up their celebrations, festivals, journeys, emotions, then their even marriages were postponed. But they stood together. They stood together to fight. And once we declared the district and the state free of Nipah, on July 1st they gathered the city and they to thank the government for making their lives possible as before. Thank you. And this slide actually shows the determination shown and the courage shown by the people of Calicut and the health department, because this boy who is flying high in the sky is my colleague in the health services department from Calicut. Thank you.
An exhaustive, part of the response to Nipah, and please don't get the impression that all our people are trained on what our colleagues will do that. The other part that's been left out of here, the two parts are left out. One is the treatment support that was given, and when you're dealing with a pathogen whose biomarkers, what is going to happen is not known, it's important to closely monitor it and have an excellent lab support. And that lab support was provided by G. Arun Kumar, who's from Trivandrum, and Arun has been a close partner for some time. Arun, are you online? Well, Arun has... is Arun online now? No. He's not. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do is that we'll have Dr. Rajendran talk to you about the response, the way they responded to the challenges of caseload management.
Good afternoon, everybody. The activity report Nipah outbreak in Kerala, Government Medical College, what happened in May. Really, I don't know from where to start, because even though in the textbook the word Nipah is heard, but I never experienced a situation like this one in my medical profession, and heard that happened in the Bangladesh, Malaysia or the Silvudi, but never in Kerala. That was the first time. And more than that, it was really a medical emergency. The medical college admission and OP. The OP is usually 6,000 to 7,000. That comes to 100 to 150. That is the situation, pathetic situation. As Dr. Sarita said, the train through the Calicut is moving by shutting the windows, and the railway station was vacant. Almost all the hotels closed, and none of them were in the campus. I think I am an alumni of the Calicut Medical College. Even now, I like the college, and it is nice to see also. But during this period, so I don't have the slides. It was lying vacant. The ward is isolated. Nothing was there. Only 100 patients coming to an institution which is serving 6,000 to 7,000 patients per day. That was the situation happened in this one. So one day, fine morning, Honorable Minister T.P. Raman sir called for a meeting. Something is going at Calicut. That was the word he said. Then in the morning, sir came to the college, and immediately a meeting was held in the district administration level. On that meeting, it was discussed there is an unusual virus infection, but none of them knows. But immediately what I did, one thing is definite. Everyone have a faith for the Kozhikode Medical College, as well as also being a tertiary center. One thing is definite, whatever happens, that we have to take the responsibility. So what I did, I take the responsibility to treat these patients, whatever the type of the disease. Because somebody said beach is ideal, even from our side, one of the doctors said beach is the ideal because the number of patients is there less. They can convert into the isolation ward. But I thought, even if it is in the beach hospital, which is near to the medical college, the people, public, everybody has got a faith of the Calicut Medical College, and we have to take the responsibility. So we took the responsibility to make the medical college into isolation ward and treating these patients. So the following activities have undertaken in the management of control Nipah epidemic in Government Medical College. First, we understood we are not perfect. Our ACS called me to make arrangements, and even lot of problems was there. Everyone was afraid, even myself also, because the situation was like that, and everyone afraid to take the thoughts of from the suspected patients. But sir, one day sir came with one person, that was Dr. Devdas. He is the director of the public health at Bangalore. The PG students as well as the staff was not willing to take the thoughts up. But the Devdas sir was a person who had an experience in Bangladesh, Silgudi, these areas, and taking in the Nipah period. So he was the only person with experience. We have no experience at all. Sir, come to my room, discuss, explain to the almost all of the PG students as well as the staff, and finally everyone was ready to do the job. Even I was also afraid as the students. But the word of the Devdas sir was so important. Sir came along with the ACS sir, and he stayed 2 days to make these arrangements. That was a great thing, because I studied from a great experienced person. That is the importance of mentioning Devdas sir in this meeting. The infection control in the institution, it is there, but it is strengthened by ensuring proper hand hygiene, use of the personal protection equipments. The various central teams visited the college, and even the virology institute, Dr. Reena Sahai, she was a person shows how to wear the personal protection kit in a proper way. She taught most of us as well as the PG students how to wear this dress. Then the infection control every day was conducting a class for the staff as well as the students of the college, how to deal the infection control, that is how to use the personal protection kits, how to wear this class. And this class was there every day 10 to 11 a.m. in the college. That is important thing. As far as the infection control, as far as the treatment is concerned, important part it is the infection control as such. We try to ensure this class to all the health workers as well as those involved, the public involved in this scheme. Even we try to teach the auto rickshaw drivers. They are bringing the patient and how to wear the mask, and these are important things. More than that, we effectively mobilize various departments for the proper implementation of these training programs. Then comes the treatment protocol. With the discussion with the medicine as well as a nodal officer, Dr. Chandini, we decided to how to treat, make a protocol and give a guidelines set up to diagnose, isolate and treat the Nipah patients. Also, we form a committee for everything, with a committee with a nodal officer and various members for the admission, treatment, logistic, disposal of the dead bodies were done in the college. The need of the isolation ward was an important thing. What we did, we converted the KHRWS spare ward into an isolation ward and made three things. That is the separate floor were given three levels. That is the suspected patients, those who are contact in the upstairs. Middle cell, the probable case and confirmed case was put in the lower floor. In the lower floor, there was a ICU. So those patients who are sick, we put in the ICU. The diagnosed case also put in the same ward in the rooms. That is how we manage the isolation ward. Also, we made a triage. In which in the triad, we will look at all the patients after wearing this PPE kit. And suppose the patient is with a suspicion of Nipah, we will transfer the patient to the isolation ward. Others will be transferred to the suitable areas. And every day morning, a committee is there. That committee will discuss the condition of the patient. Also in the afternoon, there's a meeting. Every day was two meetings, and the second meeting we will discuss everything about the necessity, need, and things of this one. And in the final, at 6 to 7, there was a meeting at a guest house. After the discussion, as Dr. Sedar said, the meeting the media to explain the situation to the public through the media. In between, the community medicine also did a very good job in collaboration with the DM of the Calicut. Also the psychiatric department, they are also very keen to conduct various sessions to assess the mental status of the patient as well as the bystanders. Also, a help desk was started in which the patients and the bystanders can call and get the details about the patient's condition. Even the food was served from the college for the patient as well as the bystander who are waiting outside. So this, with one thing is definite, with the support of the DME, DHS, Health Secretary, Ministers, MLA, as well as the district administration, the JOSA, I think one district collector JOSA, they did contained the Nipah in a short span, that is of an 18 days, and that was a world record. So that was in short what we did at the Calicut Medical College. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, doctor. We have Arun, but Arun is on a very tenuous line. So what we'll do is that you can see Arun for now. Arun, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. I can hear you, sir.
So Arun was a virologist who's got considerable experience of looking for, making accurate diagnosis about different pathogens in different parts of the country. He's also got such an international experience and who is familiar with the global search for global surveillance for emerging pathogens. To a large extent, it was Arun's. Arun has been a great supporter for the state for a long time, and to a large extent, we depend on Arun and his laboratory for the support. Arun, I'll now request you to take us through your, how you came in contact with the virus and how you helped us manage the show. Over to you, Arun.
Yes, good. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me an opportunity to share our experience. So as Raju sir said, the Manipal Center for Virus Research, which was established in 2010 with the support of Indian Council of Medical Research and Center for Disease Control. We were primarily established to support the disease surveillance system by providing a laboratory support and also for supporting the outbreak investigations. So from 2010, we were gradually increasing our capacity to diagnose common diseases as well as emerging infectious diseases. As we all know that in the recent times, the emerging infectious diseases takes countries to hostage and affects the country's economy very badly. So as part of that, we were increasing our capacity to diagnose various emerging diseases. As part of the global health security agenda, we were also working on a surveillance project where we were trying to identify the causes of febrile illness or people getting admitted in the hospital with fever, because we know that most of the hospital admission, particularly infectious disease admissions, are associated with fever. And many times when we go to the hospital, you go with fever, get admitted, you get cured, or some may become serious, but many times you don't have a diagnosis. So without knowing the diagnosis, it is difficult to implement public health measures. So in this context, we were, for the last 3 years, we were extensively working on exploring and investigating this fever cases. As part of that, we had increased our diagnostic capability. And from 2009 onwards, our laboratory is supporting Kerala, Karnataka and Goa for influenza diagnosis and influenza surveillance after this H1N1 came into the community. So since then, in fact, since 2009, particularly the district of Calicut regularly connected with our laboratory for disease diagnosis. Whenever they regularly send clinical specimens or patient samples to Manipal for diagnosis, or sometimes for influenza virus surveillance, or sometimes when they see something unusual. So this is coordinated through the district surveillance unit of Calicut district, where private hospitals also get a chance to send specimens to Manipal, and this is all done free of cost with the government support. So this paved the way for Dr. Anup Kumar from Baby Memorial Hospital to contact me when he saw a family cluster of encephalitis or the brain fever, particularly with one of the members dying 12 days before. So this cluster was notified to me by Dr. Anup Kumar, and on discussion with him, we suggested multiple clinical samples to be transported to Manipal by hand to save time. So within the next day, in fact 17th May, he contacted me. 18th May morning, we got the clinical specimens, and because the laboratory was prepared, we could test the samples for various pathogens, including Nipah, because Nipah is the only virus which causes clustering of adult encephalitis. So that epidemiological information was very crucial for suspecting Nipah and testing. So by 18th evening, we got a diagnosis. So this was a very major achievement if you compare to our first Nipah outbreak detected in India. The first Nipah outbreak in India was in 2001 in Siliguri, West Bengal, but a final diagnosis was made only in 2006. So from there we have progressed so much. Today we've made a diagnosis within 12 hours of receiving the specimen. So this information immediately was passed on to the state health authorities and clinicians and district authorities, which enabled an immediate public health response. So this highlights the importance of having access to diagnostic facilities and the need for diagnosis. And further, for case identification in the contact tracing, again diagnosis was very critical. So we supported that also. In fact, nearly 400 people who were in the contact list admitted or admitted in hospitals and isolation ward were further tested so that we could identify if any new case comes or to rule out Nipah infection. So this is how we supported the outbreak investigation, and we are working very closely with the health services of Kerala and providing this service. and globally, you know that now every year, we see a lot of new viruses coming up, and most of these viruses are of zoonotic origin. Zoonotic origin means they are coming from animals or from the animal world. So these viruses, when they move from animals to human, most of them are highly pathogenic and they can cause high mortality, and it can this high mortality and high transmissibility can really threaten the country's economy too. So this is the context, we supported the outbreak. So I think I'm willing to take questions from the audience.
Can you hold on? You can mute your video if
Yes,
you want to, or we'll love to
Yes,
see you. That's your choice. But can you hold on for a minute, and when we conclude the session,
Yes,
then
sir.
open to for questions? Take
Sure.
another 5 minutes.
Sure, sir.
Great, wonderful, thank you. All that is left for me is to describe how we were coordinating at the state level with the national and the international areas. The problem, as Dr. Sarada mentioned, was while we knew about this virus, we knew about the virology of this. Very little was known about its case management. One of the first things I asked the ICMR was, you had 2 infections in India. Do you have any documents left? Nothing. So all that we had was from Bangladesh. The Bangladesh manual was excellent. In fact, Bangladesh surveillance system is easily one of the best in South Asia for Nipah, and we've been in touch with them. The next thing I asked WHO was that do you have any clinical material on this? Then we came to know that the clinical the clinical trials group established by the WHO had gone into sleep. It gives you an idea of the importance that a virus that affects predominantly third world countries it has on the research agenda, because HIV was discovered in 83, but by 1996 we had the first response to it. Nothing on Nipah had happened. Not only that, the clinical trials group had gone to limbo. What had happened was actually in the US anti-terrorism research. While doing the web search, we came across a seminal article by a scientist called Chris Broder, and Chris had talked about various treatments that were available, and the ribavirin came from that document. Later we came to know the ribavirin was actually a wrong, the paper would not pass scrutiny because the methodology was wrong, and many people believe, at least the clinical trials group believe that use of ribavirin actually complicates things. So we got in touch with Chris Broder through a few contacts, and they were waiting for it because the US, the bioterrorism unit, saw this as an opportunity to validate the map that they had. Things moved real fast. We got funding from Henry Jackson Foundation. Chris told us that New Zealand government has Australian government has stockpiled map for compassionate use in the event of an emergency, which we never do. We got in touch with they got in touch with the I think it was Queensland University, and then in about 36 hours, the drug was on its way to India. But as Dr. Sarada mentioned, we didn't need to use it. The second thing that happened was we revived the clinical trials group in WHO. The NIH came on board, the National Institute of Health and US came on board, and over a very fast-tracked set of sessions, we were able to develop the clinical protocol trial for Nipah. And at my suggestion, we also brought in, through WHO CRO, we also brought in Bangladesh. So what will happen now is, and the map that was brought here was shifted to NIV Pune to be used future. We have an agreement with the US government to use a cell line and create more map if needed in India for clinical trial in future. So, so what will happen in future is, because the number of cases that will be available for an RC randomized clinical trial is going to be low, we are going to adopt a broken approach. So whatever case happens here this year will get counted, and then you wait for the next epidemic. The Nipah, as you know, is a zoonotic virus carried by fruit bats. In South Asia, it is Europus giganticus. That's the one that causes virus. Remember, if the last infection was in Jalpaiguri and the next infection is in Kerala, it's highly unlikely that the bat took an indigo flight and came to Kerala. It flies only 50 kilometers. It must have infected bats on the way, which means any part in India. It did not have flown south. The bat could have flown east. It could have flown in different ways. Every part in India could be at risk of Nipah. For all you know, Nipah would have come to other places and we wouldn't have known about it. So one thing that we promised ICMR last time was that, in West Bengal you have 2 infections, nothing happened. At least in Kerala, you will have records left for the next epidemic, God forbid if that happens. And we also have a clinical trial in place. Lastly, what did we learn from this epidemic? One is that in surveillance, there is zero tolerance for missing out cases. You miss out one case, that could be the one that could cause a problem. So we have gone back to our surveillance, gone back to the drawing board in our surveillance, and now we are working with WHO Geneva on a new package. Hopefully, we should capture more cases as we go along. But that's not good enough. The emergent pathogens that evolved, we may not have chemicals to test them. Arun is lucky, but many of our labs don't have that. Many of our labs do not even have the biosafety level 3, which is what you need for testing these viruses. So we have now got permission to set up a BSL-3 in Kozhikode, and I believe I can also persuade NIV to step up the Alapura unit of NIV. So hopefully next time around we will have 2 biosafety level units in Kerala. The next one that comes may not be Nipah, it could be something else. As you know, we have a close link with the Middle East, and the MERS-CoV and others are quite rampant over there. Many of our people could travel back, and we should be waiting for that. The way things have got globalized in this world today, anything can spring up anywhere. So what we have now developed is all the tertiary hospitals now follow a protocol by which any infection in these conditions that they mentioned, encephalitis, ARDS, or persistent fever, on an immunocompetent person, on a person who should not otherwise be falling sick, a person who is reasonably healthy and so on, that case will generate an alert, which will be picked up by what we call the outbreak management unit, and then the samples would go through 3 different panels. There would be the tropical fever panel, there would be the respiratory disease panel, and there would be the encephalitis panel. So all of them would go through this multiplex, and the PCR multiplex test, and we are hopeful that next time around we may not have to wait for Arun to identify the virus for us, and hopefully we can pick this up in future. The second thing we learned was you cannot again compromise on the infection control practices. And that has to be, what we missed out. A large number of cases here happen inside the hospital setup. So in future, unless your infection control practices are good, you cannot control them. Third one is having a good public health system. The contact tracing that Dr. Sarada mentioned about was possible because Kerala has a good public health system that could then be activated. Then, while you may not know what to treat, nothing prevents you from giving care. The Kozhikode Medical College, the treatment was not provided by the senior professors. It was provided by the senior residents, the junior residents, the nurses. What they provided was care, and that was what made life easy for them. So even if if your health system is good, even if you don't have a treatment, you can still provide care. There are other lessons. I had written about that in the past, but most importantly, in a crisis like this, the most important thing is the social capital. Dr. Sarada mentioned about the way Kozhikode came together. The media, in fact, we had just one sensational story. Those days, we were all very high-strung, and the language that we would use when I called up the editor and abused him was not very polite, but response was immediate. That that channel also toned down the thing, and since then, every part of media would carry the education messages every day, giving accurate stories, telling people what to do, trying not to create the panic. every elected representative. In fact, we had Panchayat presidents calling up almost every day saying, we want this, we want that, we want this happening. The local MLA, Mr. T.P. Ramosham, was there all the time. Our minister, they were there all the time. So, and Dr. Sardar just showed you the picture of a hospital manager from Kozhikode in Dubai who flew his private jet in with the PPE because and when Dr. Rajendran had to recondition his that isolation ward that he mentioned about, that was done by an external agency. The ambulance services, those drivers who were working free of cost, they were volunteering at a time when people were running away. So what makes me feel proud of this whole response is one, the competence of the Kerala health system, the way they respond. Two, the social capital of the state that make it possible for us to respond, which we saw it again when it came to the flood situation. So the moral of the story is this could happen over and over again. And when the crisis happens, there's no time to respond. So time to respond is now. Build those systems, build your surveillance, build your infection control, build your competence, and be ready when you're challenged. I think we did it last time, and I'm hopeful that we can do it again. We'll now take questions, and I think since Arun, are you not there? Okay. Arun will take the questions.
Yes.
So you can, your initial questions can be directed to Arun, and then the others can take the questions. Yes. Will somebody please pass around a mic because Arun is not going to need. Yes. Sir.
Hi, Dr. Arun. This is Shayantan, and I would like to know, what was there any special clinical features which was which was different from the Malaysian experience and the Bangladesh experience? And the second thing, as I was in Bangladesh, I have studied my masters in public health from Bangladesh. And Nipah definitely is a disease which is very much talked about in Bangladesh. Especially they have this advertisement, means educational programs where they show date pumps app, how to collect it, how to drink it, and I would also like to know what are the long-term measurement other than surveillance you are taking for prevention of the Nipah virus.
Sir, the first part of the question, it was not clear to me.
Was there any?
What were the clinical correlates of the infection? Can I have the mic, please? What were the clinical correlates of the infection on the Kozhikode epidemic as compared to the Bangladesh and the Malaysian strains?
Yeah.
Possibly even the Australian Hendra. Yeah.
Sure. Sir, clinically, when you look at it, the Malaysian outbreak had only around 15% of the cases having respiratory involvement. Whereas the Bangladesh, we had around 60% of the cases with a respiratory involvement, because the respiratory involvement poses a threat of more person-to-person transmission as well as mortality. Whereas in Kozhikode, 90% of the cases had respiratory involvement, and we had some cases with only respiratory involvement. Because classically, even the first time in Malaysia, the disease was described, it was described as an encephalitis, brain fever type. But in Kozhikode as well as in Bangladesh, we have seen cases with only involvement of the lung. And the lung involvement or the respiratory involvement, it promotes the person-to-person transmission. So this is the clinical correlates, and the mortality was also very high reported from Calicut, because it was around 90% compared to around 40% mortality in Malaysia and around 60% mortality in Bangladesh. Coming to the date pumps type of things, in the Calicut outbreak, we had only a single case from the community. We do not have the same type of ecology as in Bangladesh, in Kerala, because we don't have date pumps tapping, and also our near our this coconut tree, toddy tapping is very different in methodology. So there is no way a bat can enter into the toddy tapping, vessel compared to the date palm sap tapping. So in addition to the surveillance and what we can recommend is that avoid direct contact with the bats, because current Kerala outbreak, it appears that there was a direct contact from the bats to the first case, because genetically also the virus has been now identified as the same virus circulating in the bats and the virus which detected in the human. So, because sometimes a dead bat or some or the other way coming direct contact with the bats, which is a rare event. Fruit bats on high trees, so the chances are less, but that also has to be encouraged. In addition, hospital infection control is the most important thing, because the current outbreak, only a single case from community, all the remaining cases were transmission within the hospital or transmission within the healthcare. So improving the hospital infection control practices or infection prevention control practices is the best way to contain this type of diseases.
Thank you. Anybody else? Any other question?
Question is not related to Nipah, but the recent outbreak yesterday, 2 persons died of this monkey fever. Is anything to worry? No.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, any other question? Or rather, I'll answer in private. It's not something that's of immediate concern to any of you, so it doesn't matter. Unless anybody is in the forests of Vairala or Mysore. Anybody else? Yes, over there.
I'm a bit curious about the Shiliguri case. I mean, is there something inbuilt that it might not spread further even if you don't do anything? Because I guess that in Shiliguri case, it was not a kind of prompt action on the part of the public health officials. So something else that probably prevented further spread. So I'd like to know that what are the sort of natural mechanisms which might prevent the further spread of it.
You got it, Aaron? Why did the Siliguri self-limit itself without intervention? After so many deaths.
Yes, while Nipah virus is highly the mortality is very high, but it is different from Ebola. The reproductive number of Nipah is less than 1. It is calculated to be around 0.45. So if the reproductive number is more than 1, it will be able to give a sustained transmission. That is what we see in Ebola. Months together we have now Ebola in DRC Congo. Whereas in Nipah, we cannot sustain the transmission in the community for the simple reason that only a few people will be super transmitters. The transmission is predominantly through the droplet. So only the people who have the cough or they are generating droplets can transmit the infection. Around 10% of the people only will have super transmitters. In a Calicut outbreak, there was a single person transmitted to around 19 people. So because of that, the disease will not sustain in the community and cause very large outbreaks. But the problem is that very high mortality, and if multiple hospitals are involved, each hospital can become a epicenter of the outbreak, and if it is not controlled, it will go to another hospital. So that is why Siliguri, the outbreak contained, the number of hospitals, healthcare facilities itself is very less in Siliguri, population is less, but the situation in Calicut is much different. We have number of hospitals. Luckily, the transmission was limited to only 2 facilities, or 2 or 3 facilities.
In case there are no other questions, I believe our time has run out too. So we have 1 more minute in case anybody wants any more questions. You don't have to ask this because I asked you.
Sorry, it's out of genuine interest I'm asking this. There was a disparity in the number of death reported in media.
Oh, yeah. So, let me explain. See, the way we do surveillance is the case is first reported as probable, then it is changed to confirmed. But what happens is if a probable case is not confirmed or dies without confirmation, the protocols require that you keep it as a probable and report it as a probable case. So the cases that which we could clinically suspect as Nipah, for which we could not do a lab confirmation, we are obliged to keep it as a Nipah case till proved otherwise and Levy proved otherwise. Thank you. I think thank you very much for joining us. And on behalf of everybody, thank you. And let me also thank my panelists, Dr. Sarida and Dr. Rajendra.
I know 2 persons died of this monkey fever. Is anything to worry? No.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Okay, any other question? Or rather, I will answer in private. It's not something that's of immediate concern to any of you, so it doesn't matter. Unless anybody is from the forest.
I'm a bit curious about the Siliguri case. I mean, is there something inbuilt that it might not spread further even if you don't do anything? Because I guess that in Siliguri case, it was not a kind of prompt action on the part of the public health officials. So something else that probably prevented further spread. So I'd like to know that what are the sort of natural mechanisms which might prevent the further spread of it.
You got it, Aaron? Why did the Siliguri self-limit itself without intervention? After so many deaths. In case anybody wants any more questions. You don't have to ask this because I asked you.
Asking this. There was a disparity in the number of death reported in media.
Oh, yeah. So, let me explain. See, the way we do surveillance is the case is first reported as probable, then it is changed to confirmed. But what happens is if a probable case is not confirmed or dies without confirmation, the protocols require that you keep it as a probable and report it as a probable case. So the cases that which we could clinically suspect as Nipah, for which we could not do a lab confirmation, we are obliged to keep it as a Nipah case till proved otherwise and Levy proved otherwise. Thank you. I think thank you very much for joining us. And on behalf of everybody, thank you. And let me also thank my panelists, Dr. Sarida and Dr. Rajendra, and thank you.